giveaways at Comerica Park, the Negro League giveaways, the jerseys, the hats.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Those Tigers uniforms are one of the best.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best. But Kool-Aid.
Yes, sir.
Before we start talking Pistons, I need an update from you because, to be honest, I was surprised when I learned Simone Fontecchio had surgery.
Yes. Yeah, you know,
This isn't a big deal. This is like Brian Branch in a boot, just temporary, or not serious.
It's not serious. He will be ready for the start of training camp.
What happened?
Right now, we're supposed to say someone's training camp because he's not officially back or signed or the extension with the Detroit Pistons. It's the injury that caused him to miss the rest of the season as well. I'm glad he got it taken care of and that it's not too serious. And it's interesting. I was looking at a lot of different advanced metrics because I know this is our Woodward Pistons segment. Simone Fontecchio, as it relates to players in his draft class, ranks at the top of a lot of different things, especially catch and shoot, three-pointers off the dribble, cutting to the basket, creating opportunities at the rim. Simone Fontecchio is somebody that the Detroit Pistons cannot afford to let go. You're talking about a young player who I think has just barely scratched the surface. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can rebound,
he can
play defense. You got to lock this guy up. And you know what he said at his press conference? I want to be in Detroit. I want to be here. You got to make that happen. Chat family, definitely let me know what you think about Simone Fontecchio. I don't know what the deal is going to be or what it's going to look like, but I do believe if you are able to keep someone like him paired up with Cade and anybody else that the Detroit Pistons are seeking to put around Cade Cunningham, you got to lock this guy up.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing here is this, though. When I was going through a lot of these advanced metrics, Cade Cunningham continues to rank in the top 10 in a lot of different stats. He is the number one player as it relates to playmaking in his draft class.
Cade Cunningham,
the number one player. Because a lot of people say he's not a winning player. A lot of people say that Cade Cunningham is a guy that does not make his teammates better. And there's an explanation video. I don't know if I sent it, but I can explain it. What the playmaking talent, top 10 third-year players in playmaking talent, what this represents is the opportunities that player creates for his teammates, whether they hit the shots or not.
Got you.
Quality looks, which means his teammates, and it also is 5 different categories. It measures the gravity that player also absorbs to himself.
Got you.
Cade Cunningham, number 1 in gravity. Cade Cunningham, number 1 in playmaking. Cade Cunningham, number 1 in potential assists. Cade Cunningham, number 1 in assists. You got to surround this guy with actual players. That's what it's telling us. And it's no shot at the young guys that we already have. I like Duren. I like Ivy. I like these guys. I like Asar. I love Asar. He just can't hit he can't, bro. He's in a funk right now where he can't throw a rock into the ocean if there was a three-point line sitting right in front of him. So it's like Cade Cunningham right now is one of those guys where people are wondering, do we give him the bag? Is he really that deal? Like you guys heard Stick yesterday, like maybe he's not that guy to get.
Of course.
Biggins in USA, shout out to you. We got into some discourse yesterday, and he's saying, well, look, the Pistons have a better record without Cade than with. And it's like, are you looking at everything that goes into what these wins were? Because some of them wins were over teams that had shut down their teams completely, either getting ready for the offseason or trying to tank. Cade Cunningham, by every metric, is one of those guys that needs to have a good team around him, and he will make sure those guys get the opportunities and that everybody eats. It's what he's always shown himself to be. Catch and shoot three-pointing, Cade Cunningham, top 10. The top 10 players under 25 at creating lob attempts.
Hey.
Do you know who's number 1 and number 2?
Under 25.
Top 10 in creating lob and paint opportunities for their bigs.
Is Shai Gilgeous still under 25?
I'm not sure.
Is Luka under 25?
I believe
Luka
so.
is under 25.
Yeah.
That's number 1.
Throw it up to Gafford.
So who do you think is number 2?
Cade.
Yeah.
He's number 2.
Yeah. Every stat as it relates, I'm trying to make your teammates better. Cade Cunningham is there.
I need Lob City 2.0. I need him in Duren.
Yeah.
To just eat up that basket, just to dominate the offensive end of the floor with the pick and roll and with the lob.
And we've seen flashes of it this season. I know they did a lot of losing, but you can see the chemistry that Cade already has with a center like the prototype of Duren. So, yeah, you would like to see more of that because that just enhances his game. But to Kool-Aid, and you brought up the contract, do you pay him the max or not? I'm personally of the belief that you do that. Everything we've seen of Cade from the time that he's been on the floor, he's affected this team in a positive way. And without Cade, you think 14 wins is bad? Oh, my God. There's no telling where this team would be without Cade Cunningham. But if you're Trajan Langdon coming in, this is an important thing to handle. How do you handle the Cade max contract? Do you give him that max contract? How would you go about it?
Yeah, I know that Cade Cunningham at the exit interview stated that it's something that's definitely on his mind. He's been thinking about it, and he just kind of put everything to rest as it relates to his desire to be here. He said, this may sound like cap, but I'm telling you guys, I'm more confident and optimistic about what this team could be today than I was when I got drafted 3 years ago. Which to me, everybody in the room was kind of like, oh. But he was like, I'm serious. He was like, I really believe in what we can do. And I do think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he believes in himself. You got to have some type of self-belief, especially when you're playing professional athletics. And Cade Cunningham, he just has that. I do believe they need to give him the contract this year. I do. I believe give him his max contract this year. Get that out of the way.
Yeah.
The issue that you have, though, is what are you doing with the rest of these players? Because somebody else who surprisingly showed up in a lot of the top 10 playmaking stats for second-year players, you know who that was? Jaden Ivey. So as Cade Cunningham was number one, in the third-year players, Jaden Ivey was number two. It was number one for second-year players.
Really?
Yeah, and it gets interesting because do you just give up on the Jaden Ivey trading because you need a Brandon Ingram? Because this was the other thing I wanted to be able to present to you all. Bleacher Report. Shout out to Bleacher Report. I do some side streams there as well, so shout out to them. Their proposed trade for the Pistons, and this thing has changed. Like 2 weeks ago, their proposed trade for Brandon Ingram was like Isaiah Stewart and somebody else kind of non-consequential. Now they've changed that to Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, pick number 5, and a 2026 first-round pick, lottery protected.
For Ingram, Herb Jones, and Trey Murphy?
They just have Brandon Ingram.
Oh, come on. We can't just get Ingram.
I love me some Ingram. That's a little too much.
I feel like that is way too much. But this is where I wanted to ask people.
What?
Do you believe, though, that a Cade and Ingram backcourt, or a Cade, not a backcourt, but a Cade and an Ingram duo, does that make the Pistons a plus team? Because if it does,
No.
You have to pull that trigger. But if it doesn't, why would you do that?
Well, it can't be. I don't think that can be the only move you make. Like, I don't think just Brandon Ingram, as talented as he is, I don't think just one move to bring him automatically makes you a playoff team. Like, there are still pieces you need to add around him. You still need players, two-way players on the wing next to, like, Brandon Ingram will help your offense immediately.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that does much for your defense. He's improved defensively over the last couple of years, no doubt. But that Pelicans team, and he's at his best when he's alongside Trey Murphy and Herb Jones and guys who can lock down the opposing wings.
Yeah. He's also a player with a bit of an injury history. So if you're committing that much capital, to me, it just can't be Brandon Ingram. And I know that's crazy coming from us because beggars really can't be choosers at this point. And the Pistons have unfortunately played themselves into a situation to where you have to consider a deal like this. You might have to overpay in terms of trade capital to a team in order to get an impact player because they know you have to make a move. You have no leverage. So unfortunately, this would have to be on the table.
Yep.
And I can't all the way say no, even though my heart would say not just Brandon Ingram. I can't say no completely to that.
Yeah, because the issue is this here now. All of the reports that are coming out are that there's a lot of teams now that actually want to take a run at Brandon Ingram. The Sixers have now come out and stated that they want to as well, which is going to drive up the price for the Pistons. Because now you got Ingram in a position where it's like, do I want to go to a winner? Do I want to go to a team where we have to try and win? And I know that he doesn't get to make that decision in a trade. But with a lot of these other teams coming out, it's going to drive up the value that a trade is. Now, if you can make that deal and utilize your cap space to go out there and still sign another really, really good player, as well as bring in some more role players like UKG, it's like, ooh, this Bleacher Report trade is one that's like,
yeah, it's tough.
But
the more you think about it, you're like, well, you said Ivy, Stewart, this year's fifth.
So you're talking Cade, Ingram, Asar, Fontecchio, Duren, and whatever you spend the rest of your cap space on this summer.
My initial reaction was, that's kind of a lot. But you know what?
It sounds kind of dope.
It sounds kind of dope. Yeah, it does. I mean, when you think of not having to give up both Ivy and Duren, or Asar and Ivy, or Asar and Duren, you got to part. Like, I don't mind Beef Stew being involved in one of these trades.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving up the 5th overall pick. And to be honest, I could care less about the future first if you get a guy like Brandon Ingram, if you get an all-star back in that trade.
True. And two things. One, you don't want to keep adding young players to this team. So the 2026 first that you'll also be given in addition to this year, I mean, it kind of is what it is at this point. You have too many kids on this roster as is. So maybe you do consider trading that pick and don't really think twice about it, because you don't need to keep adding youth to this situation. Yeah. And then when you just look at the fit, Asar Thompson, we love him, but offensively, he's not the kind of wing that's going to help you achieve any success. Wings today in this league, especially your starting wing, you have to have some type of offensive game to you. And Jaden Ivey, I love him, but it's not the best fit with Cade. So we also have to look at what fits what. Brandon Ingram is the wing that this Pistons team has sorely needed for years now. We haven't had a three that's that prolific before. So I think you would have to definitely consider that.
It's Melo.
You have to.
This is Melo. This is bringing Melo to Detroit.
Yeah.
You have to. You got to consider it. This team needs to be in a position to where you know you can at least contend for the play-in. And for me personally, if you make a trade like this team has to be in a position where they're actually in the play-in next year. If you're going to go and you're giving up 2 of your young drafted players and you're giving up an opportunity to draft 2 more drafted young players, you got to take this team and push the acceleration right now. Yeah. You cannot wait. You can't say, well, we got a few more years to build this thing up. The cool thing, though, is this. Cade and Ingram, we all know they share the same agent. And now we have Trajan Langdon. And now we have Trajan Langdon, who was his previous or former GM. If there are any players that we can get, he's going to make sure that we can get them. And that's where it's interesting with Trajan Langdon. I know we're going to talk about him a little bit more in the next segment because there's a lot of different players. Like you said, give me anybody from that roster.
All of them.
Because the Pelicans, they're not so sure about the fit that they have right now or the team that they've built around Zion or the fit between Zion and Brandon Ingram. Mm-hmm. So the Pistons definitely, if they do wind up missing out on the Ingram, I do believe they're going to find themselves in a position to still pick up 2 or 3 solid NBA rotation players, which they need. Yeah. They need desperately. We went through this yesterday. There's so many people, man, who was like, well, LeBron carried this team as a rookie. LeBron had 2 all-stars on his team as a rookie. Why do people not understand that? And when you look at the full roster, bro, Carlos Boozer was all rookie.
He was.
Boozer.
And then he developed into an all-star. Big Z was an all-star. Zajunas Ilgauskas. Yeah. Mo Williams later came to the team. He was an all-star in his first season with Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cade has only played with young players and hobbled vets.
Hobbled.
You ain't carrying that nowhere, bro.
Right.
But to the bottom. That's just it. So, hey, look, I want to get into this because I really want to talk about Trajan Langdon in the next segment. I got a lot of questions. I hope you guys got your questions too. Yeah. Chat family, get your questions in as well so we can discuss this with our Pelicans reporter. I think she might call in instead. Okay. It's getting the blue screen of death.
Hey, remix, baby. Any chance we get to talk to her, whether on the phone or on video, would be awesome at this point. So,
we'll get MVP in the TD booth with the fire hat on, JB Smooth.
What up?
Hey, and we got Detroit's #1 draft pick in the sound booth. What up, though, KG?
What up, though, man?
Rookie of the year, MVP, Black Hollywood, all that.
You know it.
With 2 C's.
What up, though, Justin? That dude, Justin. Woo, woo.
Excited to be here.
I love the energy you bring to the platform. And it's your boy, Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, your credentialed Detroit Pistons reporter. And we have...
I'm excited.
Yeah, a Pelicans reporter on with us from... my first connection was through the Believe Network. Her name is Rel Myers, and you can find her work and her website at relmyers.com. And really just an overall fun person. Like one of those people that exude a really, really, really good personality.
I love it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm looking forward to this because we haven't yet had the Trajan Langdon press conference.
Right.
He did update his bio, so we know, okay, it's real. He's locked in. When they change it on Twitter, it's real.
You know it's real.
It's real when it's changed on socials. But we're still waiting for the Trajan Langdon press conference. I was hoping it would be this week. They usually don't do press conferences on a Friday, so if it's not going to be tomorrow, it's probably going to be next week, Monday.
Fair.
Yep. So hopefully, I am hoping. Goodness, I can't wait for this press conference. But we do have Rel here, and I wanted to be able to get her perspective on what to expect from Trajan Langdon. Are you with us?
Yes, I am. How y'all doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you for giving us your time this morning. Well, you guys already know Trajan Langdon is now the president of basketball operation title for the Detroit Pistons. With the Pelicans, he was their GM. And we're all wondering, what are we to expect from Trajan Langdon here with the Detroit Pistons?
I feel like Trajan's an interesting guy, but in a mysterious way. You know, like I feel like he was here this whole time and we didn't know a ton about him. But a lot of that is because he was working with David Griffin. And David Griffin is the face and the mouthpiece of the front office, you know, so we didn't hear from Trajan a whole lot. And in the one time that I was able to actually talk to Trajan, he expressed to me that he enjoys that. He's like, if Griff wants to do that, that's fine. I'll just hang in the back. You know what I mean? So he put his head down and get to work, you know, doing whatever he's doing. But yeah, I don't know if you guys know a lot about David Griffin, but he likes to be in the front. So Trajan's like, cool, yeah, go ahead. But I do find that funny that he's changed his bio already because he's more of a Twitter lurker. He doesn't tweet. He doesn't like a whole lot. So it's funny that he went on there and changed his bio real quick.
Oh, man. So with Trajan Langdon, obviously one of the biggest things that a lot of Pistons fans are wondering right now is this aspect of potential Brandon Ingram trade. Obviously, in our world, we're hearing it from the perspective that we want to hear it. But in your world, what are you hearing about Brandon Ingram? Is Detroit one of those teams that you hear as a potential trade candidate for Brandon Ingram, or are you hearing other things?
It's mostly fan speculation at this point. I think there are a handful of people, because I'm not credentialed. Let me start there, right? So there's a lot of people in the fan base who are, you know, trade machine connoisseurs, if you will. Right. And they're looking at, you know, Detroit's number 5 pick or whatever have you, plus maybe Jalen Duren or something like that. But you kind of have to wonder, as a Pelicans fan, is this guy even available? Is the number 5 pick even available? Do the Pistons want to give Brandon Ingram, you know, the money he's looking for? Do they want to give him a max contract and things like that? So, you know, there's a lot of inner workings that we as fans don't necessarily understand in terms of contracts. And people just think you can plug in the trade machine and get whoever, and everything's all good. But, you know, it doesn't necessarily work like that. And then, you know, obviously they have the connection with, you know, their agents and things like that. But, you know, as far as I know, Brandon Ingram wanted to stay here, but he had a very ugly outing in the playoffs, and I just don't know if the Pelicans can continue to go down that road building around him and Zion Williamson, because you basically got two guys who are just 2-point threats because Brandon refuses to shoot the three. So it's been tough, but it's been 5 years and we've seen the same thing. Either somebody's hurt and missing, or they do play together and they look good, but then they blow a dozen double-digit leads, and it's just they're not progressing the way that they should. And the Western Conference isn't allowing for them to have more time to grow. You know, like you got to go now. So B.I. may be on his way out just because of that.
Yeah, Raul, Matt Broder here. It's really nice to meet you, and thank you so much for coming on. I want to ask you about Trajan Langdon again real quick, because I know he was in the general manager role in New Orleans and is now moving over to president of basketball operations. In his role with the Pelicans, what type of general manager was he? And I asked that, is he someone we can expect to, you know, dominate through the draft, or is he savvy making deals in the free agency market, whether it's negotiating with agents or with other teams? What type of leader is he, or that we can expect here in Detroit?
So here's where it gets tricky, right? Because I was bringing up David Griffin, and there's so many people around the league who refer to David Griffin as the Pelicans general manager. They don't even know that Trajan Langdon was the general manager. Like, that's how behind the scenes he was. So a lot of deals, when we talk about deals, either potential deals or deals that we made in the past, everyone refers to, oh, well, if Griffin had done this, if Griffin had done that. And I'm stuck wondering how much of this stuff has Trajan Langdon himself actually done. And because I'm not, you know, I don't have so many like sources and things of that nature, it's hard to tell what he's done. But as a group, right, as a group, the Pelicans front office between Trajan Langdon and Swin Cash, shout out to the Detroit shop, right?
Shout out.
And Trajan Langdon, there's the way that they operated as a unit. Because I'm not sure if it's just Trajan, but the way that they operated as a unit, they won't make a deal if they feel like they're going to lose that deal. So there's a lot of times at the trade deadline, we just didn't do anything. And from a fan perspective, you're like, man, Dallas went out there and got X, Y, and Z, and we just didn't do anything. We're sitting on our hands and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not necessarily the case. They're poking around. They're trying to make deals. And if the deal that they want isn't there, they're absolutely not going to make any move. And so then as a fan, you're like, man, these guys don't do anything, you know. But I think that they're just more of a, play better safe than sorry, more of like a conservative front office. And again, can't necessarily say that was just Trajan, but as Trajan being the general manager in his tenure here, that's the way they operated as far as trades go. Like when we got C.J. McCollum, C.J. requested a trade, and he orchestrated for himself to come to the Pelicans. I don't necessarily know if we would have gone out and got somewhat of a big fish like that had he not specifically wanted to come here.
Take
that how you will.
That's a really interesting take, because there's a lot of moves out there that we especially as Detroit fans, we want anything good. People who cover it, people who watch it, people who observe it, season ticket holders, and we see some of the moves that the Pelicans have made over the years, and we will attribute that instantly to our guy Trajan Langdon. So it's interesting to hear that perspective that maybe some of those moves weren't all him. Now, given the situation or the position that the Pelicans in, and believe me, I would trade spots with them in a heartbeat. I would trade rosters in a heartbeat. How confident are you that Trajan Langdon is a guy that's going to come to Detroit and really kind of have some of the same success here that we've seen the Pelicans enjoy over the last few years? Because I like a lot of their players. We were talking about it earlier. Like we would take, give us, if we miss out on Ingram, you know, hey, Najee Marshall,
CJ,
Herb Jones,
Trey Murphy. Like, I'm like,
Alvarado, getting the bag this offseason. So good luck to him, man. He's a great guy. Undrafted, came in and did his work, and now he's getting ready to get paid this summer, I'm sure. So, but I think that, so the guy who's getting promoted in Trajan Langdon's place, his name is Bryson Graham. He's been with the Pelicans for over a decade. He started literally as an intern, and now he's expected to be promoted to the GM. He was their assistant GM. They had two assistant GMs. One of them was more of a, contract statistical guy, and then Bryson was more of a draft guy, more of a scout guy. So Bryson was more responsible for finding the gems in the draft, like Herb Jones, who was, a second-round pick, number 35. Now he's first-team NBA All-Defense in his third season in the league. So Bryson had the talent of finding those gems like that. Now, how much of that can we attribute to Trajan? I don't know. We give Trajan credit for listening to Bryson, right? But which of these guys did Trajan find? Did he find Trey Murphy over at Virginia? It's hard to tell exactly what his fingerprint has been on things, because he's such a quiet and reserved guy working behind someone who keeps jumping in front of the camera like David Griffin. It's almost like what Suge Knight was saying about coming to death row, you know what I mean? Like if you don't want the president of basketball ops on all the press conferences, instead of the general manager doing it, come over on this side if you don't like that kind of thing, So it'll be interesting for me to see what Trajan brings to you guys' organization. But I think for him as a president of basketball operations, if he's not being the president of ops and the GM at the same time, I think he'll move out the way and let the GM operate as they need to. But also, he's not just going to completely move out of the way. He'll have his hand in things. But I think that he's a relaxed guy who gets the job done, but he's not going to be, like a stickler for certain things, if that makes sense.
Man, that's a lot of good information, because we're sitting here, like I said, we're waiting for this press conference to get the opportunity to go in there and ask a few questions to Trajan Langdon and kind of get a feel for his philosophy, as well as what he currently believes about the construction of the Detroit Pistons. I just want, just from an outside perspective, okay, and be easy on this. What is your take on the Detroit Pistons right now, their roster construction, and the potential that this thing could get turned around?
Well, last season definitely wasn't going to put myself through games during that long losing streak. I don't know how any of y'all were able to sit through that, but just I'm pulling the roster up here now. Yeah, I can't imagine, man. I can't imagine. But I mean, obviously, guys like Jaden Ivey, really high on him, really high on Cade. I think what did he have some sort of nagging injury or something last season that kept him off for a little while?
Yeah, he's been dealing with some we'll call them nagging injuries. It started serious. Yeah, he's dealing with some injuries, or was these last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the overall roster, it doesn't make sense to me why they were losing the way that they were losing. You almost from the outside looking in, you think there's no way that these guys are even trying to win. Like, how can you lose that many games in a row, right? But like, it like, are they tanking? You know what I mean? As a fan, personally, I'm not a fan of tanking, right? So like, I don't know if you watching them, I don't know if you think, okay, well, you know, in the end this will be good, because you still end up with the 5th pick. You still didn't end up with first, right? So when I found out that happened, I actually made a video talking about how the Hawks won, and I said, if there's any Pistons fans listening to this, I'm so sorry because I don't understand how the lottery works to where you can see a team be 10th and in the play-in and then end up with the first seed, and then there's a team like Detroit that won 14 games and you get 5th. I don't get it. It's tough. So I know I'm a big fan of viewing things in a way where things can't stay the same forever. So the team is going to turn around. It's just a matter of how long will it take for that to happen? How long will it take for them to be competitive again? How many years until we at least see them back, either in the play-in or maybe fighting for a top 6 spot? That's the big question. And you just never really know, because injuries can derail you the same way that they've been derailing the Pelicans. You know, like, we have 49 wins and still ended up in the play-in. Wow. and our star player got hurt literally in a play-in game that we shouldn't have even been in, but we didn't take care of business. So that just, everything unraveled from there. So you can have a relatively good season on paper, and then things can still, end up derailing you. So hopefully the Pistons don't have that problem. Hopefully when they do turn things around, they can, get back into a competitive level and stay there. But you just really never know in this league.
Man, you know what, Rel? Thank you for giving us your time. That's it's some good insight, man. It was cool to hear the perspective from somebody else on these Detroit Pistons. This thing started off with some hope, and they never really finished it, man. It's like when like when you go into like a hibachi and they put the garlic on the grill. Yeah. And it's like, yo, it smells amazing. And you're waiting like, bro, are you gonna put the rice on? Are you putting the steak on there? And they just never do. It's like that's what's happened here over the last couple years. So it started good. The butter and the garlic is on the grill. You got Cade here. And then they just didn't do anything else. And it's weird. But I hope that Trajan Langdon brings some type of clarity and an actual NBA structure to how the Detroit Pistons front office decides to operate. When Troy Weaver was hired here, we didn't have a president of basketball operations title. They didn't give him that title, though he was in that last year in OKC, he was actually the VP of the vice president of basketball operations. So he had experience in that role. But they told him, and it's been reported via Omari Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press, that they were supposed to work as a tandem, meaning I get the sense that Troy was just kind of, hey, I suggest this, and if the guys ahead of him or kind of above him in the hierarchy agreed, then they were going to move forward. What I'm hoping with Trajan Langdon coming here now is that we operate a little bit more traditionally as relates to the PBO and the GM being able to work together to really put together a team that can compete in this modern NBA. So I appreciate you, Rel. You want to tell the people where they can find your work and everything?
Yeah, for sure. I think you mentioned it early on. It's relmyers.com. That's RELMYERS. And I also have a Pelicans podcast called Pels and Whistles.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the time and answering the questions. I know you got to get in to the next JOB as well. But we appreciate you greatly from the Wake Up Woodward crew. So
thank you, Rel.
Yes, thank you, Rel.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
Hey, you too.
Appreciate it.
All right.
What an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Like, we don't always get the opportunity to talk to someone so close to the team. Once we once we were able to pull Trajan Langdon or a member of their front office to hear her thoughts on, the next Trajan Langdon in New Orleans and how what's his name, Bryson something, how he is credited with Herb Jones in the second round.
Yeah,
there are question marks. Who's credited with Trey Murphy and these things? There's still some question marks. Yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm not less optimistic, but I appreciate the honesty of what they view him down in New Orleans.
I kind of like the fact that she said he's not really the pushover type. So maybe that's a good thing in terms of the Arn Tellem situation and whether he'll have full autonomy, So it was helpful hearing that, but still a lot of questions.
Yeah. That's why I cannot wait now for that press conference. She answered a lot of questions. And honestly, I did hear about this kind of assistant GM who's going to be elevated to GM. And they really like this guy with the Pelicans. I wish I had his name. I'm sorry about that. But
Yeah.
they said that guy was one of the guys kind of instrumental at identifying some of the talent that they've been able to pick up in the draft. So it'll be interesting to see what Trajan Langdon is for the Pistons. But you're exactly right. I think the number one thing you need in your PBO is a guy who, within this Pistons kind of front office structure, somebody who can stand on his own too.
Yes.
I don't like, look,
That's the key.
if Arn wants to suggest something and it just so happens to be a good deal, then okay.
Right.
I don't have a problem with basketball minds in the front office trying their best to make the Pistons better. But when you are kind of exerting your will over the guys you've hired to do the job, that's where we got a problem.
Yes.
And I keep, when you look at this thing, for how long the Pistons have been kind of spinning their wheels, SVG years, Dwayne Casey years, Monty Williams years, who's been here through it all? Ed Stefanski and Arn Teller.
Yes, sir.
They're the most consistent people in our front office through a lot of years of losing. They did help us make the playoffs twice, and it was not sustainable. So now I'm hoping that what Trajan Langdon can do is come in and identify, first and foremost, is Monty Williams and Troy Weaver the people that need to be here to coach this team and to GM this team. And I'm hoping that's something that's figured out quickly. And after that, if Troy and Monty are here, this is the other thing. The way we don't want Trajan Langdon to be a pushover with the people above him in the hierarchy, I don't want him to be a pushover to whoever the GM is or that coach.
That's facts.
If Jaden Ivey's supposed to start, I'm sorry, you cannot let your coach dictate that. And I get it. People say, let the coach coach the team.
Yeah.
But the team was Jaden Ivey. Like, I just don't understand that. It was a weird thing to me. So this is going to be interesting to see now. There was some enlightening comments, I will say.
Yeah, and for God's sakes, just let this man live or die on his own. Please. Let him fall on his own sword. If he fails, fine, but let him do it on his own accord. The same thing we wanted to see with Troy. If it's his moves, it's his team, let him live and die on his own decisions.
Yep, and you know what? Before we get into this next segment, I do got to read this, man.
Read it.
I got to read it. I told you guys I would read it today, and it was the Killian Hayes stuff. I should have sent the graphic over to JB. I don't know if I did or didn't, but Phil Omari Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press, he did an article when Killian Hayes was drafted. And I'm reading this just so you guys can understand this structure has been weird. Like you said, let Trajan sink or swim on his own. They should have let that happen with Troy, but they didn't. A lot of people, they give Troy Weaver crap for picking Killian Hayes. He didn't do that. I keep trying to tell people that.
Yeah.
He was hired a month before the draft, and it was the COVID year. The organization had tabs on Killian Hayes since a year before they ever hired Troy Weaver. That has to matter. The report was, when they drafted him, the Detroit Pistons drafted Hayes 7th overall in the draft, November 18th, formalizing the French 19-year-old's relationship with the franchise he had been connected to. Thanks to Bynum, freaking Will Bynum, and Pistons Hall of Famer and former president Joe Dumars. Hayes was familiar with the Pistons long before he declared for the draft in March. Dumars connected Bynum to Hayes and asked Bynum to train him. Well, there's problem number one. I'm just saying. If Bynum is the one training your draft pick, then I don't know what we're talking about. Moving on, though. Dumars, now a Sacramento Kings executive, this is where it gets interesting, was hired by Independent Sports and Entertainment, a sports media and entertainment management agency in 2014 as president of his basketball division. I wonder where Killian Hayes was signed to.
Yeah.
ISE hired Hayes' agent, Jan Balalacuzo, in July 2019 as their director of international operations. Dumars and Bynum have had a close relationship since Bynum to the Pistons in 2008.
Sheesh. So it's Joe D's fault, is what you said.
He set them up and then bolted to Sacramento and did what? Drafted Tyrese Halliburton. That's crazy to me.
Wow.
That's crazy to me when you think about like Joe Dumars, like F y'all.
Wait, say that one more time?
Joe Dumars made the connection a year before the draft with Killian Hayes and the organization and had people training him and all of this. Because even after Joe D left, Will Bynum was still training him on behalf of the Pistons now.
Yeah.
And then Joe Dumars went and got hired by the Sacramento Kings. And who drafted him? Who did they draft in that same draft?
Halliburton.
Halliburton.
My question to you is, I know that the plot thickens. The plot thickens. As a matter of fact, I got you. So, but my question is to you, okay, so when was Tom Gores hired, or when did he take over the team?
Ooh, I don't remember the exact year, but it
2011?
was 2000 and
I'll tell you in 30 seconds.
Either 11 or 14.
So, yeah, because this would
11.
lead me to believe that maybe this was a FU on the way out
It feels like
to
that,
Tom
don't it?
Gores. It could be.
It feels like that, man. Because the reporting, I've been telling people this for a long time. Before I saw that article, I had already had sources that had kind of told me some things. And when I saw the article, I was just like, yo, this is some wild behavior. But
yeah. But
it
why
is what it is.
else would you do something like that? You know, it kind of reeks of, I don't want to compare it to Alavila because he was fired, but it's like signing El Mago to a big money deal and then you get fired the next year. Okay, well,
Ken
you left us
Holland.
on the hook for that.
I know we're not trying to slander Ken Holland. He brought us several Stanley Cups.
Yeah,
But what was left out the door was not so
good.
great.
Brandon Dogs asked me, is Troy Weaver paying me? No, I just care that the organization runs things the right way.
You on
Seriously.
the payroll?
That's all I care about. The reality is, and people have reported on this since before Troy Weaver was here, and when he got here, the first article was this: Troy Weaver is not going to have the power. He's going to have to get things approved from the people above him. That's just the reality. That's what reports. Ain't got nothing to do. Like I don't have to ever talk to Troy. If you guys are tapped in, you'll be able to see these things too. All I'm trying to do is make sure I'm reporting the news, because whether it's Troy Weaver here or not, if you hire Trajan Langdon and a new GM, but the structure above those guys are still doing the same thing, KG, what's going to happen?
The same
The
shit.
same thing. And me, I love this team too much to sit quiet.
Thank
Y'all
you.
can. I'm not going to do that. If I know the truth, I'm going to tell y'all. I got people within the organization who said, go off on this stuff because it's trash. That's what I'm going to do. I love this team. I got told you, if I shed tears for you, I'm going to go to bat for you. That's just how it goes, man. Where are we? What business do we have to take care
Yeah,
of?
we got.
It was awkward hyping up you with the phrase "tell them."
I don't.
Like there's something a little awkward about that. No, but you gotta tell us about the all shows. I love your passion on this Pistons team. Anyone who thinks you're just giving gibberish just to appease someone, they don't understand.
Man, what'd you say?
Say that again.
I'm not rooting for Ken Holland, by the way, brother. Just
Ooh.
to level that out there.
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah, it's because he doesn't manage the Stars.
No,
Your team.
because he left the Red Wings in the gutter.
Yeah.
Oh man, but you know what, guys? Thank you guys for supporting the Wake Up Woodward crew. We're 3.5 months, going on 4 months in. Man, it's been awesome. It feels like we've been doing this forever.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we do get the opportunity to do this forever, and that this chat family continues to support us, because it's what we live for. Thank you guys greatly for rocking with Wake Up Woodward, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. But after us, you guys already know. Lock in to Big D Energy. 4-time Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty along his co-host Neil Rule, the Golden Voice. After that, from 2 to 4, you got Armani and Edwards with Maz, the lovable radio legend Tom Mazaway, alongside former U of M legend and NFL wide receiver Brandon Edwards and Detroit media king Ryan Armani. And after that, the Woodward heavyweights from 5 to 7. Spin Mo Rex and Easy are bringing you the biggest laughs, the biggest interviews, the biggest breakdowns. You guys already know. Most importantly, thank you to you guys for making Woodward Sports the #1 digital sports network out there.